Hello and welcome to the lecture. So we almost saw about the toolbar buttons in the previous one and the basic side, how to render and how to invoke the actions, hide, disable, and all this on the toolbar button side is done. And now we'll focus on the data side, and we'll start with the selection change, right? So whatever is selected, we need to track those things or some other ways, right? So we see this here, and so we will create a model page that will show the list of selected records, from like a page that shows me what are selected here, because basically for an example this will have some 10,000 records, and we're gonna fetch that for a interactive grid, or even user can even explicitly select as well and open a page which are selected. So instead of filtering, right, so it will be a bit confusing. So whatever is I selected and I can't filter from here, basically it can be done through some intermediate a page that can show us that which are selected. So that will be very useful. So we are going to create that, and we are going to use that through the button. So we'll replace this download button. So we'll replace that action, and that action will open the model dialog, and we will see that selected record. So we are gonna get the selected records here, and also we have to once we got that, we have to use a middleware that's using the AJAX collection, that's PSQL side. This will store all the selected records in the collection, and even using that we'll be fetching that in the model dialog. So we'll see that in this lecture. So we'll create an action here, and we'll replace the existing action and the label as well. So this download, I'll just show selected records, and going to this attributes, we are gonna remove the old one and replace with the thing. So this is about the my button, right, in the actions. So we are adding this my button toolbar. Now we are gonna put what we gonna get at. So before that, I'll just explain in the console about the get selected records. So let's go with the apex dot region as you remember, and with the ID as in the previous lecture. So we created s_stores, and from here we will be using the the call. There we have the parameter as the get selected records, so we can use that. So if we use get selected records, so we have selected a few from around 6 rows are selected. So if we put that, we are getting some 6 arrays. So we are gonna loop through this to get the store ID alone. We are not gonna get everything. So each array is having a set of column data, so store ID, store name, and here we have the physical address. So it's not rendered wide. So let me refresh this. So now if we get that from here, so we are gonna get only one. So it is about this data. So now we are getting 3, right? So, and if I select one, and if I put, I can get the 2 arrays. So we are gonna loop this array, and with the first element we are gonna get, and so we will use this one, and we'll just print the console now. And let me assign this to a variable. Let selected records to this one, and I will put console.log on this. So basically we can get the the primary key by looping through and putting this through index of 0 here, but that is not with the right way. So maybe I can put you with an example. So if I put, let's console.select selected records, right? If I put this one, it will be printing the same. So I'm putting off 0 means it will print me the first record. Instead of putting that, we'll loop through that. So maybe we can start with here, and now if we refresh, and if I click this download button, the show selected records button, it's showing me what is selected. If I select more, and now it's showing me this 3. So we're gonna loop through this, it's an array inside an array, so we are gonna loop through here. So we are gonna use the for loop. So if I put for that I, it's gonna be looping to the selected records, and we will just put console.log of I now, I of 0, because I will return me each records. Refresh again. Yeah, so we will clear this and put show selected records. We are getting the the set of arrays now. So if we put I of 0, we will get the first one, and we can store that and push it to another variable. That would be fine, right? So if you're in the programming side. So but that is not the right way. If you're gonna take the column key as assuming that always the primary key will be coming first, right? So if you're gonna assume that, so 135, right? So 135 are selected. If I put index as 0 here in that I, it's not the right way. So basically we have to do in some other side, so that we will be getting to the model.get field key. So Apex has the model, right? So if we put call of get views, right? So if I put get views comma grid, so that's an interactive grid, right? So this will return me a model actually. So it has a model object here, this model, and we can use here with the get field key. Basically it's not written here, but we can use that object. Not going to deep here because there are lots of things. These are so much customizations to be done, and we are gonna focus on the model.get field key. So how it happens is, so if I put model means it returns this much instances, so you can see, and dot get field key, so this would be having a parameter of the column name. So if I go to the page, and we are having some columns, right? So going to this interactive grid, we have the column store ID, store name. So store ID is the primary key, right? So I'm gonna use that as the parameter. So I'm gonna put inside as a string here. So this will accept the column name, right? So if I put this, I'll get some number, that is the index of this, how the Apex is gonna take. You have seen, right, from the data we have seen that how it is populating, right? So even we can get the data here. So this is the one, so it's coming as the one online, and this empty is the physical address, right? So all are coming as some with the store ID as index 0 and store name as index 1 and physical address as index 2. It's gonna be fine when you look through the UI, but user can really change the columns, and even you can't ensure that this store name can be pulled to the last and it will be having index 1, but it's in the second, right? But in the UI it's different. So we can't assume that and put I of 0 in our case in the attributes what we have seen. So we have to use the way of model.get field key. That's the thing. So if we put store ID, we're getting 0. If I put store name, I'll get 1. So that's the thing. And even physical address will get 2. So it's about that. So you have to approach in this way to get the index. So I'm just copying this, and yeah, so this I'll replace that here. Yeah, so if you want, you can refactor it as well. Maybe you can put let region equal to the apex dot region dot this one. So I'm gonna cut this and paste it here, and this will be region, and here as well will be region. So we are gonna use this. I'll remove the semicolon. Okay, so now we have the the exact index. It will return me the same. Obviously I have 0, so we have to store this, push it to some array. So we have to get that in the form of array. So we're gonna use the AJAX Callback, right? And we're gonna loop through and add to the collection. That's how we're gonna do. So in order to store to an array, we'll create one global variable that will hold all these store IDs. For an example, that will hold these store IDs. So store IDs and good, and I'll assign an empty array so I can push it for the first time. And if I go to the attributes and here initialization, and here we'll just put the store IDs, right? We'll gonna push it every time. So whatever is gonna click, those all the things will be pushed, so each by each. So if I put store IDs dot push, so it will be pushing that now. So maybe I can put a console.log at the after for loop, and with the selected store IDs I can get that. So I'll put store IDs here, so we will see the complete store IDs in our array now. So if I refresh and we'll clear it, so I'll select some few, and if I click on the show selected records, so you can see we are getting all the IDs from 1 to 3 5 6. Even if you uncheck it and put, and if I click show selected records, so we have to clear that. So that's very important. So we have to reassign that. So initially we have to put it to empty array here, so then we can click it and add it. So we have to put store ID is equal to empty array. So it should be initialized there. Even there it would be fine, but declaration we are gonna do here again. Okay, so now we'll check our issue which we have seen. So I'm gonna select and show selected records. It's fine. I'm gonna unselect it, and yeah, so now it works fine. So this is about that, and we will now use the AJAX callback. So how we are gonna use the model like this. So here we are using the apex-util.prepare URL. We are gonna use the same, and with the parameter we have to gonna open the model dialog, and that's one thing. And even we need to save it to a collection here. So two things we are gonna do. So it has to save to a collection, and as well open the model dialog at the end. So that's the result. So we are gonna use the apex.server.process, and how we done from the let us copy this and we will search it with here where we have used. So we have used a lot, and this is the best way. So I'm gonna copy this now, and we will rename the process name and even the x01. So that has to be f01, which you remember. And if I go to the grid now, so I'm gonna go to the attributes. Maybe we'll just make it simple, advanced. Yeah, so this will be easy now. So to scroll, and yeah, so we will call this here. We'll just go to the home, and I will format it. This we will put store and prepare URL. Okay, so we are on our store, and this would be f01 because we are going to use the arrays store IDs. This is the parameter here that will be used in the collection, and we're not going to do anything in the URL side. Only we're going to put this navigation. So we'll be returning from the http.p here. So making sure that if we'll add an exception if p data is not equal to maybe error. So we will execute this. So JavaScript is having only one line, so we need not put any braces. And yeah, so we will create this AJAX Callback. I'm copying and going to the process. I will create one AJAX Callback with this name, and we are gonna create a collection, as well as we are gonna open the model, right? So we will start with Apex collection first. Okay, so we're gonna add a collection here, right? So which I said about the Apex collection, which has for a temporary storage of the stores which we are gonna store. Yeah, so we are gonna create a collection, and even we are gonna truncate it. So we are gonna create and truncate, so it will replace that with the new data whatever we are adding. So that's about that. So we can go with the create or truncate procedure. So that will have a parameter as the name of the collection, so that we will be using now. So we have an example, so let's copy this and pasting it here. So this will be, we can give a name like stores, and we have to remember this name because while adding the member we have to use this, and even while fetching the data from this collection. So we have to remember this name. So we are gonna create or truncate, right? So if I go to this top, so we are gonna add the members. So we have the add member procedure to add this, and we have lots of things, and it's about more exploring on this part. And we are just gonna call this for a temporary storage, and we are gonna use only this to the collection for create and truncate and to add that. So here we will use the add members procedure. So that will be having the array data type. Add member will have the we have to loop through that and use. So better we'll go to the add members procedure. This is the array data type, and we can use p001. Why enough? Because we are going to use only the ID, and this will be the collection name. So we'll take an example here, and we will add only one parameter, and we will put here. So we'll put stores as the same, and only one is enough in our case. So this would be the one. So about the dynamic variable, so this is the Apex application .g underscore f01. So this is about the array type, and we are done with the collection now. So this will add the list of members from here, and now we need to create an URL first. So let's click OK, and we'll copy that what we have written earlier. So it just prepares that URL. So I'm gonna copy this, and we will to go here, paste it here. Okay, so the things we are gonna change, we have to create a new page actually. So I'll be creating page 4 for now, and we are not gonna replace anything here, and even no concatenation. So we have to change the triggering element as well. So this button has a different static ID actually. If I inspect, and okay, so this is the button ID. You can see s underscore stores underscore IG toolbar. So this is the ID for that. If I inspect again with this one, so basically we didn't add any ID here, so that's why it's not coming. So basically we will try to add it. Let me compress this. Yeah, so we have to add that. So we will be adding now, and replace this and create a page, then we will click on our button. So also we have to add an exception. So if there's any error, so we are not gonna handle in the most proper scenario way. We are gonna handle it in the every error case. So we're gonna put when others then, and we'll put http.p of that error which we are gonna return if there's any exception while creating this collection or even the preparing the URL. And now we're putting it. So now we will create a page and replace this triggering element. We'll just add the ID here. So we are gonna define here, right? So we have to add an ID parameter for this toolbar. So if we put here, we'll put ID as, you know, the same. Maybe we'll put the same, my button, with s, or maybe s underscore my button. Okay, so we are gonna use this. So we're having an error here. Maybe this mistake is on the colon. I have put instead for semicolon. So now we will save and inspect our show selected records. So we're getting an error here. So maybe on the I forgot to put the comma, I guess. Yes, I forgot the comma. So let's see now. So even small things can result in the loss of an interactive grid. So we have to be very careful on that to defining all JavaScript stuffs. So now if I gonna, you know, go to elements and inspect this, I'll be getting an ID here. So this is the one. So it starts with s underscore stores underscore IG. So that's the generic IG underscore toolbar, followed by our ID, what we define. So I'm gonna copy this and put it as the triggering element, because that's gonna trigger that model, right? So I'm putting this, and basically it generally is for to handle the close dialog, because we are gonna listen to this if you want, and that's about that. So we'll create a page now by saving this and create a model page. So it's about blank page, and yeah, page 4, and this will show selected records. Okay, I forgot to change that to model dialog, but we can change it later on inside the page. It's not an issue. So here I can go to appearance and change this to page mode to model dialog. And yeah, so we'll create a region here, and we have to fetch from the collection, right? So we'll create the same interactive grid, show selected records, and this will be interactive grid again. We're not going to edit it, but we'll just show it with the SQL query. And so we are gonna, you know, fetch the selected records. Obviously for now we'll show only the IDs, and later on we can, you know, get the other stores as well. So we're gonna put C001. So that's what we are used, right? So C001 as store ID from, you know, AJAX underscore collections, where this is how we have to put, where collection name equal to what we have given the name, that's the stores. So that should be single quote stores. So validate it, this is fine, and we will have only one column for now, the store ID, and we'll save this. So now we are gonna see the changes here with the collection that is created. So close this, and if I click on show selected records, and we are getting an error. That's common to get, and this p data is not defined. Okay, so I have used as p data here in the, you know, from that side on the where I have copied. So that's page 2, I guess. Yeah, so page 2 here, and on the attributes, yeah, search for the p data, right? So this p data, okay, I have used to p data, that's why. So this will be p URL, that's the return response from this store and prepare. So hope it returns the URL now, and we will see the changes. So if I click show selected records, it opens that, and it's showing me the one, so what is selected. So if I select everything, and it will show me all the IDs. So this is how we want, right? So if I can unselect a few and only 16 are selected, so now all those 16 are seen. So that's about that. So all these are showing store names and about that with the cities. And let's rename this to, you know, some city we want, maybe Phoenix, and we'll put some random address from here. Just putting some random. So we will save it using our save, and it'll be saved. So now we will fetch these in from the every ID side. With the ID side we'll fetch the store name and the address. So that's easy. If you can query that, we're gonna use the simple query to get that. So we'll put as select. So I'm not sure of the the query, so let me copy that from the previous page. Even we can use this one from stores. So I'm just using this query where store ID is the one, right? So that is only needs to be seen. So where store ID in, I'm gonna put as subquery. So we'll get 3 columns now. And now if I see the output now, so you can understand how the collection is doing. So we are gonna create or truncate a collection, and we are gonna add the members. So only we're adding the store ID. So based on the store ID we are querying. So that's about that. So if I select some random years to show, and now I can see all the complete things from here. So only I pass the ID, so it's not sorted. We can do that also. And yeah, so that's about that. And here I can select and search whatever I want, instead of I don't know what I want to search from the selected one. So this is about the selected records, and now we are gonna make this our own selection. That's about some case, right? So basically if you want to see the selected records on the page load itself, so a particular data is automatically selected, you can do that in Oracle Apex on the interactive grid. So it can be done on the event which I mentioned in the previous lecture, that is the interactive grid page change. It won't work on the page load because the grid is not rendered. Obviously the data is having the lazy loading, means it won't work. So if you have the lazy loading, means it's about fetching the data after the every regions are rendered. So basically if the lazy loading is off, if we go to performance, so once all the 24 records are loaded on the server, I mean from the server to this client, then only it will refresh the page from the starting of the HTML from this to here, I mean to render. So that's about no lazy loading. We won't see any wait here. But if we make a lazy loading on, the Apex will be rendering everything as usual, and this interactive grid has to no longer be wait for other components to load. So it will be on the last side. So data will be fetching after everything is rendered. So if I refresh, so now we can see some spinner of loading, right? So this is about the lazy loading. So it's rendering and then loading me the data. So this has to be done, right? So this won't work on the page load to select the records. So that's why I said in the previous lecture we have to use the interactive grid page change. And yes, so better to use the page change which I created in the earlier side. That will be disabling the show download. We'll remove this and we'll add our own logic. So basically we can select the records in a way that which we use the get selected records, or in the side what we have seen, and Apex has the get selected records as well. So if I gonna use the Apex node region, I will just fetch from the previous thing. So it's having grid, right? So to get selected records can be done through this way, and if I put get selected records, this will be returning me this the same thing whatever is selected, if you can see. So this is about that. It's returning me 3 now. So if you want to set selected records, there is a way. So it's the same thing, you have to replace that with the set selected records. So this would be set, and it has to give one parameter that needs is an array of primary keys. So if I open an array, so what are the primary keys I wanna select, because the primary key is the reference for each row, right? So we are gonna select the some random keys like 1 3 5, and we can use it as an array here. So it will automatically applies that and select it. So actually we are missing here, because this is it's not a number type, so it's a varchar2 type, and so that's why we have to put it as a string here. So if I put this, now you can see that it's getting selected. So it's about that. So you can understand, right? If you wanna select a record, you need to get the primary key and you have to set that as an array. It will be selecting. So even we can use the store IDs, what we have seen, right? So the store IDs which we have been storing from the show selected records, so it's the same way. It's an array of primary keys. Now we are going to use that as a set selected records, an array of primary keys. So we are going to use this one in the API, which the interactive grid page change. So here I'm gonna use 135. If I want to add some other cities as well, maybe 24, and yeah, that's fine. So we're gonna save it and we'll refresh that. We'll close this now. So now all these records are selected, 1 3 5 and 24. So now I need not bother about selecting. I can see whatever it's selected. If I want to select some more, I can select it here and there. Whatever I want, I can select it, and I can show selected records, and that will show me. So this is about the interactive grid, the selection change. It's not selection change, it's about the record selection, how we can make use of that, and one of our ways to achieve the things that we want. And lots of things can be done even with enabling or disabling an interactive grid button. Like if we have only one record, then with that selected record I can do some action, like we saw, right? So opening a dialog we can undo, or if the row is selected twice, we can get that. If it is having record selection 2, we can disable that button because it's having only one selected, or we can show an alert message, do only one selection. In that way, it's up to the design of that. So I'm just giving some examples so to proceed, and even it's about everything. So even we can make this as a single selection. We can go to the row selector in the interactive grid. In the columns, we can go to the row selector and we can disable this multi-select, and we can disable this select all things as well. So this is about that thing. So if you want, you can do that. It's about all the customization. Lots of things can be done on this interactive grid because it has a lot of interactivity in this Apex side, like a menu, we can see sub menus, and it's about so much things. And still we can do more on this interactive grid about the validations and the data, how we are gonna fetch this and set it. So all these the things we'll see at the next lecture.